Welcome to the Friendzy.
Hi, I'm Melissa Carter.
And I'm Jenn Hobby. The mission of the Friendzy is to celebrate friendships over 40.
We believe that women thrive through authentic relationships, self discovery, and spiritual exploration.
Our decades long friendship continues to grow because we are willing to go there and share the truth through life's highs and lows.
And that's why the Friendzy is here to hold space for women who are 40 and older because at this age, your story matters more than ever.
I'm Jenn Hobby, and when I was trying to get pregnant, I did acupuncture. And that was with our oldest child. And we tried something called moxibustion.
I've never heard of that. I'm all hippy dippy and I've never heard of that. What is that?
Well, it was because she was breech, and moxibustion is this Eastern medicine way to get your baby to turn head down.
Did it
And it
work?
is the most bizarre thing. It did not work, and I ended up having a C-section. But it is the most hilarious thing. So you light these things that look like cigars, and they smoke almost kind of like incense, but they smoke very slowly. So you have to like light them and light them again. So they look like cigars, and you let the smoke swirl around the outside of your baby toes. Have you ever heard of such a thing?
Your baby toes or your baby's toes?
No, my baby toes. So there
Oh,
I
I was
was.
like, is it around your vagina? Is that what they're, I mean, is that, because that's the first thing I thought of. Okay, your baby toes.
Yes, isn't that
Okay.
funny? So picture me sitting in a chair in my living room, big, huge, and fat and pregnant, with my feet sticking out, and my husband sitting on the ground,
Bless him.
swirling these lit incense cigars things around my baby toes.
He loves you. He loves you. I don't know a lot of guys that would be okay. You want me to do what? Where did you hear about this?
I did get a couple questions about it, but he did it because we really wanted her to turn around, but moxibustion did
Look,
not work for us.
I would have tried everything. I would have tried everything too. So no judgment here. No judgment. Never heard of that. All right, I'm Melissa, and in honor of last night, which was Halloween, um, I got to have half of my son's candy bowl or bag, and Katie got the other half because my son does not like sweets.
What? He doesn't like candy?
He doesn't like candy. And the thing is, we don't push it. We don't push it,
Really?
but everybody else wants to push it,
Of
right?
course. Yes.
Everybody else wants to say, "Oh, aren't you sure? Hey, try this, try that." And I'm thinking, look, I mean, I don't want to start a habit that he's going to have to try to get out of later on. We just don't. We're like, look, I mean, it's even better for us on Halloween. But yeah, my son does not have a sweet tooth, so Halloween candy to him is eh.
He
He was at
needs to go trick or treating for toys at every house. Then he'd
yes.
be really
If
motivated.
he had because back in the day, somebody we worked with loved giving, lights out to kids for Halloween. I gave him crap for it, but my son would be the very one to like those lights instead of candy. But yeah, so
Good, because the whole world tries to push sugar on kids.
yes,
The whole world, everybody, not just grandparents, but everybody except for your dentist is going to give your kids sugar. So the fact that your kid
yes.
doesn't like it, that's genius. Amazing.
We had a birthday party that we went to for one of his baseball friends, and it was Halloween themed, and he had a big piñata, and he slammed it, and the candy came out, and then every kid had a little trick or treat bag, and they could, divvy out the candy that was on the ground. And my son handed me the bag and said, "No, thank you. I'm not interested."
It's
And
great.
so,
He's
and
like,
he
"Can I just whack that piñata one more time?"
yes,
That
he
was
just
the fun
yes.
part.
That was the fun part for him. So anyway, so yes, and so if you have a kid in your class or your son, your kids have friends, don't be that person. I mean, you would have thought that there was some kind of druggie at his birthday party. He didn't. I had like candies out on the table as well as his cake, and you would have thought that I don't know that it was a sin for him not to eat candy because there were adults that were real almost trying to force feed him some of this candy.
You're like, "Let
And
it
I
go."
just stood there and I'm like, "It's not gonna work. It's not gonna work, whatever you do." So anyway, so Halloween
Good
was
for
a good night
him.
for us last night.
Is there anything that he has to have? Like, does he crave anything bad, like junk food?
Donuts. He loves donuts.
Ah.
Bready stuff. So he likes icing, so he'll eat the icing off a cupcake. So doesn't usually eat the whole cupcake, but he likes it. So the only reason he likes icing is he was introduced to that by birthday parties at school. So
Mhm.
school introduced him to icing, and not his preschool did it. Actually, his current school doesn't allow some of that stuff in there, but his preschool was all about the cupcakes for birthdays. And so I thought it was ironic that school is what taught him about that, but donuts. And he learned that at a birthday party. So we didn't usually have donuts in our house. And so a birthday party
But
served donuts, and
hey,
he's been addicted ever since.
if the kid doesn't like candy, then he can have all the donuts he wants. This is great.
So yeah, so yes, my son loves donuts, and that's pretty much it.
Mr. Carter, so cute. All right, friends, coming up on today's episode, we are going to answer this question. Should sleepovers be banned? This is a struggle that I am having in my house, and I definitely want your opinion on it.
And we're going to get a question out of the You Don't Know My Life box. And the question for today is, what is the worst uniform or costume that you've had to wear for work?
Oh, that's so good. And we're going to answer a question from the Friendzy advice column. It is from Karen. She wants to know about changing her name, or it may be Karin, Karin. She wants to change her name.
So so don't judge her immediately because it's not Ian. And also, I will have your mirror mantra to say to your reflection this week. But first, have you signed up for the Friendzy email yet? Is weekly email. Okay, we only do it one time a week. We're not going to bug you about it, but in it, we send you the episode right to your inbox and any relevant information and things that we discuss and links to things that you need with deeper insights into everything we do right to you. We make it very easy. So we want you to sign up at thefriendzy.com. Plus, we also send you the link to our private Facebook group, which is slowly growing. We're very excited. So thefriendzy.com is where you sign up today.
And we want to thank our listeners who have already subscribed to our email list, including Celesta Williams, Lee Witz, and Francis Curry. Thank you so much.
Jenn, we are going to dive into the sleepovers debate because I'm fascinated of why you want to ban it here in just a minute. But first, let's thank our sponsors. And at a sleepover, you might wear Kit Kat pajamas. I'm singing very low because I have workers in the house. They're like, you want me to kick it? What do you want me to do? So use the code Friendzy for a 10% discount, but Kick It Pajamas if you have someone in your life who is a patient, more specifically a cancer patient, because money proceeds from Kick It Pajamas goes to cancer research. But kickitpajamas.com is where you can find out about that. Plus, Lifeline.
I like your low singing. This is good. It's much more sensual.
So if you want to get your veins checked out, because things can get anyway. I'm going to leave it
It's
PG.
like you're slow jamming the
Slow jamming.
Lifeline screening.
And if you use the code FRIENDS without the Y, they will know that we sent you, and we appreciate it.
Awesome. Okay, Melissa Carter, I think that sleepovers should be banned. And
why?
I have 2 daughters for our new listeners who may not know. At this time of the podcast, I have an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old. And as our kids grow up, their social lives become so much more important. You know, they have a new best friend every day. You know, it's one day it's this person in class, the other person it's this, other dancer, and they're, the dance team, and there's a best friend on the soccer team. So they're starting to get invited to sleepovers, and it's starting to make me really itchy and nervous for a couple of different reasons. The first is age. So I want to know when you were able to start doing sleepovers when you were a kid, or when you would let Mr. Carter do sleepovers. Because with having 2 girls, the little one wants to keep up with the big one all the time, right? There's a lot of arguments about fairness, right? What did she get to do? What did I get to do? Was it the same? Did we get, there's a lot of competition there about fairness.
Especially since the same gendered siblings, that usually happens more than.
But my older daughter is probably more ready for sleepovers. At nighttime, she doesn't need as, we always like read and tuck her in when she's home, but she doesn't really need it as much as the little one does. So first of all, it's age. So if I let the older one have sleepovers, then the little one is going to want to have sleepovers, and I don't think she's ready. So let's tackle the age part first, and then I'll give you some of my other reservations.
Well, I don't think that your oldest should be punished because your youngest exists and causes a fuss. Now, I am the youngest. I'm the baby of the family, but I was far more behind my siblings than your daughter is. And I wanted to keep up with them, and I wanted to be, I mean, and they were
Mhm.
teenagers when I was this age. So my mother's like, absolutely not. So I do think that you have to come to terms with the fact that they have to live independent lives, even though the youngest one is going to make a fuss about it. But you don't, I will defend the oldest siblings by, I don't think oldest siblings should always be babysitters or always have to include the youngest ones because that causes resentment too.
Mhm.
Um, because I know that my older sister, like, there's resentment there. And there's resentment on my end too. So, you just want to mitigate that. But I think I was around Lauren's age when I first spent the night with Carol Dabney, one of my best friends.
Is that like
Um,
third or fourth grade?
it was third grade,
Third grade. Okay.
and I had a problem sleepwalking. So I was a
Oh, wow.
sleepwalker when I was a kid. And I would not remember it. So that was the main concern for my mother, was that, is she gonna sleepwalk? I remember her and she was friends with Carol's mother, but it
Mhm.
was like, okay, here's a thing to consider. But she still let me go because I hadn't slept walk in a while before I got there. But anyway, I don't know my mother's concerns, leading up to that, because as a mother now, I know that my mother had a lot more to think about than just the sleepwalking, and never
Mhm.
shared it. But I think, because I thought your first thing was gonna be, was a different gender, because that's my biggest concern, is that, kids or at least Mr. Carter is gonna be friends with boys and girls. And I will say this too, not to delay this any longer, but um Mr. Carter has spent the night with friends while Katie was there. So Katie is friends with the parents. The
Mhm.
parent has, and this was during the pandemic, because they were part of our pod.
Mhm.
One of her children has special medical needs. And so she was part of our pod because of my medical needs. So we're like, okay, our kids can interact with each other during the pandemic. My son was home for remote kindergarten, so he didn't have a lot of friends he was interacting with. So Katie said, well, this way he can practice sleeping over. So I'm there, but he's
That's a
staying
good
with
idea.
them.
Yeah, I like
A
that.
and so that's the other suggestion, is maybe you should be a part of the sleepover as well, if you know the parent well enough.
Mhm.
And that was 2 gender, because it was twins that were boy and girl. So he has spent the night with the girl. But Katie was there. And so that's something we can talk about later, because I have a feeling, because Mr. Carter's 7 and in the first grade. So he's not quite ready for that by himself, because he's still afraid to sleep with the lights out, so he's not, I don't think he would handle a sleepover by himself very well at this
Mhm.
point.
Right.
But
Yeah, they
anyway,
have to be at the right age to do it. So, okay, so
right.
the age thing, okay. The next thing is about protecting them. So, I have let my girls have a sleepover once, and it was a neighbor that is not too far down the road from us. I know the parents very well and trust both parents tremendously. And they have 2 girls. So, it was their 2 girls and our 2 girls, and it went great. So, I'm just trying to think about sleepovers moving forward, because I thought, "Oh, sleepovers are great, they're fine." And then my 3rd graders started getting invited to sleepovers of houses where I don't know the parents as well. Like, I've maybe met the mom at one PTA meeting, or we've crossed paths at a parenting event, but the girls are becoming close friends through the year at school. But that was what flew up the flag for me, going, "Do I need to have some more rules around sleepovers?" Because I hadn't really considered her getting invited to places where I don't know the parents as well. And
Right.
so I don't wanna create a double standard for her where I say, "Sleepovers at this house is okay, but this one isn't." So for that invitation, I just told the family we were busy, and we already had plans for that weekend. But I thought, "Ugh, I don't know them very well." And then come to find out, that child has an older sibling, a brother in high school. And then I thought, "Well, definitely no," because I know of so many people who, as adults, look back on sleepovers as a kid, and that's when sexually either inappropriate or traumatic things happen to them. And I'm like, it's my job as a parent to protect my daughters as long as I can, with as many variables as I can from having that kind of experience that young.
Mhm.
Um, so it's like I'm trying to figure out, should I just ban sleepovers so that the rule is just blanket? Like we just don't do that in our house? Or how do I navigate it per family? Because I'm sorry, if a kid has got much older siblings, I'm going to be like, that makes me nervous. Or if I know the mom, but I don't know the dad, that makes me nervous. If I don't know if they're going to have other people over at the house, like how do I know the parents aren't going to be having a party and there'll be other adults there that I don't know? So there's just a lot of variables that are freaking me out, Melissa.
Well, I don't I mean, I'm glad you acknowledge the sexual, inappropriateness because I mean, I certainly know people same thing that it was either a brother or father. I know a friend whose friend's father came in on her in the middle of the night. So it happens whether people want to, talk about it or not, it
Yeah,
happens.
it
But
does.
I don't think that
And it
the
reminds me of this is just, me and a teenage babysitter when the dads used to drive you home and there were creepy dads driving
right,
home
yeah.
the babysitter at the end of
Yeah.
the night. And,
Yeah.
it's like, it just kind of, it reminds me of that situation where, we teach our kids to be respectful of adults. So I don't ever want to put my children in a situation where they feel that they can't speak up or they're uncomfortable to speak up because they would be um
Oh, I tell my
in someone
child
else's home.
well, I mean, but I mean, I think that I try with Mr. Carter to tell him about his body. This is from you. You are the one that inspired me to do
Mhm,
this. But I constantly tell Mr. Carter his body is his. That has
mhm,
nothing to do with anybody, and I reiterate, family members, friends, other adults,
mhm,
teachers. Like I list out all the people that if they make him feel uncomfortable, he is okay to say no and to immediately tell me or Katie.
mhm,
So there's a difference between showing respect to adults and what they have to tell you, but I give him the permission. If it makes you uncomfortable what they're trying to tell you, then let me know and I will be your guide on whether that's right or not, because I tell them there
mhm.
are bad guys out there and sometimes bad guys are people you know. And so I do tell so I absolutely more than once always tell him um because even if I have to do something, I tell him it's more appropriate for you to do it than even for me to do it when it comes to his privates. And so I let, and but I don't like, my sister, bless her, but she's kind of she's kind of harsh in her communication about certain things. And one of the things I did not like that my sister did was she basically told me once, we're really fortunate that our father didn't molest us.
Oh, geez.
Now this, I'm telling,
That's brutal.
and I was young and I didn't understand what she was talking about because apparently her friend, she was expressing relief because obviously she had a friend that had shared something with her, but in her trying to mentor me, she traumatized me. And so I had never
Mhm.
seen my father as a potential molester before until she said that, even though he wasn't, right? It just
Right.
planted the seed of that. So I will say that if you have boundaries for your daughters, don't overshare why you're doing it.
Mhm,
Um, no, it's if it's your concern, there's no reason for you to share your concern with your daughters and sons. But of course, daughters usually are more vulnerable to this. Um, but I don't think you should ban it because that's overreacting. But I
yeah,
don't see there's a problem by telling Lauren, I don't know their parents. Because
yeah.
I know that Millie Pete said that to me. I'm trying to, as you spoke, I was trying to think, did I ever spend the night with anybody in elementary school that my mother was not friends with? And the answer was no. In
Yeah,
high
I
in,
I
in high
I
school I
was
did, but not in elementary school.
I was trying to remember that as well, and I think that I was mostly allowed to have sleepovers with our next door neighbor. She was 1 year older than me. My parents knew her parents very well. We knew the whole family very well, and I was right next door. And that's the person I got to have sleepovers with the most. And then I started thinking about it. Now that kids can get phones, I think I'll feel more comfortable with sleepovers when Lauren has a phone, because then she has a way to communicate with me. Like, even if it gets uncomfortable with her friends, or girls can kind of be mean as they get older, right? Like, we're not there yet, but I know like the mean girl middle school years are coming. And, even if she's feeling sad or left out or just like she got her feelings hurt or whatever, I just want her to have an exit strategy.
Mhm.
And if she's got a phone, then she has an exit strategy because she doesn't have to make a big stink about going to the other parent and say, call my mom or whatever. She could just
Right.
text me and say, Mom, I want you to come pick me up. And or Dad, come and get me. And then she would have that chance to do that. But they don't have phones yet. And I don't want her to have a phone too early just to
Well,
go
I'm
have a
gonna well, I'm
sleepover.
gonna okay, because I can see you spiraling. I love you, Jen Hobby. I love you, Jen Hobby.
Trying to
But
control
one of
all
the
the
things
variables.
but one of the things about Jen Hobby that I'm most concerned about, because we have concerns for each other, right? We've been friends for 20 years,
Yeah.
is your people pleasing and your concern about other people's feelings.
Mhm.
That's the thing that I think that I really sometimes want to shake you on, is like, it is okay for you to say, I don't know those parents. And it's
Mhm.
okay for like, and if these girls really, really, really have to, like, we're blood sisters. I had blood sisters. I don't know if you did, but if you, I
Yes,
mean,
I remember
we were
that.
scared to death to prick our finger, but we finally got it done. And then we just pressed it. We're blood sisters. Our blood, pours.
Oh gosh, can
What?
you imagine that now in the time of COVID? We would
Right?
all be like, "No! Do
Exactly.
not do that."
Yes. So anyway, but yes, had blood sisters anyway. If they're just dying to spend the night with each other, then that's an opportunity for you and the other girl's parents to get to know each other
Mhm.
in order for you both to feel safe with each other. But until then, like I said, like Carol, Tracy, and my two best friends growing up were Carol and Tracy Ann. And my parents were good friends with both of their parents. And there
Right.
were brothers, and there were older brothers, both in both homes. There were twin brothers and older I was two best friends both had twin brothers, and they both had older brothers. And I had an older brother, right? So I had a house that had an older brother in it.
Right.
And there was no issue. So yes, in fairness to men,
Sure, of
the
course.
majority of brothers and fathers don't do anything, but yet the ones that do, it's damaging enough that you have to make sure that it never happens. And so I think that, yes, I think your line in the sand should be, I need to know their parents. And I grew up in a small town. So, it was easy for them to know them and be good friends with them. In the city life, like, I can't tell you I'm good friends with any of Mr. Carter's friends. I am very well acquainted with I'd say 3 of them at this point, and I could see where those relationships could lead into him being able to spend the night.
Mhm.
But as of now, if somebody asked him to sleep over, the answer would be no. We don't know you, and so to merge the two, we've told him, when you are able to sleep without the lights on and the TV on, and not be afraid to go to bed, then you can, because he's overheard people spend the night. He's heard about sleepovers.
Mhm.
So we're like, well, it's on you. Like, you're gonna have to get to the point where you're okay to go to bed by yourself, and then you'll be ready. But yeah, no, we have to know the parents for sure. For sure. I have no apologies for that. Because the other parents thinking the same thing. I'm sure that, there was a sense of relief with the other kids too, potentially. But is it there usually when it's at your house, hey, my house is safe. But the other
Right,
parent may not
exactly.
understand that. Yeah. So
Yeah, yeah, and even, for our little one, she's been invited to, like, "Oh, come over to so and so's house for a play date." I'm like, "I don't know so and so, and I don't know their parents, and I'm not okay with that," So, I
well,
think
now
that's a good
play
line. It's like, and
yeah. And
how well.
play dates are innocent too. So I mean, like,
Of course. I
you want a
know,
band
but
play? No, I'm just kidding.
not without me on the first time visiting
Of
somebody's
course.
house,
Right. Well,
you
play
know?
dates to me include the parent. I don't know.
Right. Yes,
To me, by
exactly.
definition, that includes the parent. I don't know. Maybe that was just baby
Yeah.
stuff,
There
but
was one family that was like, "No, no, no, drop her off." And I'm like, "No, no, no, I'm staying." They're
but
like,
I
"No,
gotta
no,
tell
no,
you,
you don't have to." And I'm like, "No, I'm going to." It was like, I don't know, when those warning defenses go off, we talk in the Frenzy all the time about, like, listen to your intuition and listen to your gut. Like, maybe I'm a little fearful and letting that part take over, but if I have a weird feeling about something, I'm either going to say no or I'm going to be there the whole
Look,
time.
I don't want to ever regret a decision I make.
Yes. You're
And
right.
I'm a mama bear. And so I'm not going to like yeah, I guess because I'm an older parent, I'm not going to make an apology. That's my
Mhm.
son and I'm going to do what I have to do in order for him to be safe. And Katie Joe is me times 10. I mean, Katie Katie Joe is
Really?
she's viscerally a redneck. She will come in with a shotgun and a, 4x4 if she has to. I mean, like she but no, we constantly have conversations about this
Mhm.
stuff. Like we're on the same page and I totally defend Katie's like you said visceral reaction. I defend, when Katie feels fearful and she defends me because that's our job. That's our job is to make sure he's safe. And
Mhm.
I'd say that to him too. Like if he doesn't agree with a decision, then I'll say, "Let me explain to you what my job is." And then once and he seems to understand that, okay, well, you're doing like I'm trying to explain to him, I'm doing what I think is in your best interest. I'm not trying to just tell you what to do, right?
Mhm.
Because he's like Mr. Spock. Like he needs to understand. He's a logical guy, so you can't get him on emotion. You get him on logic. And so once you make something make sense to him, then he's, oh, okay, all right, I get it, and
Yeah,
then
I think
moves
that
on.
Lauren's the same way. I think if I can logically make sense. So, okay, sleepovers are not banned, but they are highly restricted to places where we know both parents and the family very well.
Yeah.
That's a rule I can stick to.
I don't
Thank
think that's a problem. I
thank
don't think
you.
that's a problem, and I think that, you know, I think as long as you provide your child with that, as long as we provide Mr. Carter with something under those rules, instead of him feeling like he's just being left out, then he's
Right.
fine, he's fine with it. Like,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay, well, I may not get to spend the night over there, but I'm spending the night over here, and I'm getting what I want. I wanna spend the night with somebody." Right?
Right. Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
I hope that helps. But, being a
Yes.
parent, it doesn't it is what is somebody told me and Katie one time, and I cannot remember, but it was basically welcome to being worried for the rest of your life
It's so true.
about something.
All right, let's grab a question out of the You Don't Know My Life box. And by the way, we encourage you to steal these for the dinner table or for your friends at work or for your next Zoom meeting. Okay, today's question is, what's the uniform or costume you had to wear for work?
The worst one,
The
right?
worst uniform or costume.
Because this is kind of, in honor of Halloween last night when, this is released, it's, the day after Halloween. Today's the Day of the Dead.
Yes.
But the I mean, I've talked about Tweety Bird before. That's in a past podcast.
Oh, I
Um,
forgot about that.
I had to I was yeah, you'll have to listen to that podcast, but I was Tweety Bird. Uh, I think that 2 things come to mind. I have a hard time wearing khakis anymore because I worked at a movie theater. My first job was at a movie theater, and this was not like a costume. This is the uniform was yellow shirts and khaki pants. That's all you could wear at work. And I
It's like
don't look
Best Buy.
yes, and
Sounds like Best Buy, doesn't it?
I don't look good in yellow, so I don't wear yellow, and then, khakis are very hard because there's something about khakis that I just don't find attractive, and I
Mhm.
think it has everything to do with because it was a work uniform. So, I do own a pair, but every time I put it on, it's like, "Oh, this is." I'd rather have different color on. But I will say the worst uniform or costume is a costume, and I made the mistake. I forgot what they're called, but those body uniform, those body, it's all one color and it mutes out the person underneath, and you look like there's a name for it.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. They were in some commercials. It's almost like Blue Man Group or something.
yeah, but it's a full body cover, and you can get it in different
Yes.
colors. And so I made the mistake on the morning show that we were a part of Katie's brother was the first one to ever show me this costume. And it was brand new, and so I introduced it to the morning show, and so thus, as the loss of a bet, I had to wear one on the corner, in Buckhead in Atlanta. No, it wasn't Buckhead, it was on the corner of Peachtree and Piedmont.
A morph suit.
Morph suit, that's it.
Oh, I just Googled it. A morph suit.
I had to wear a morph suit on the corner of Peachtree and Piedmont in Atlanta, which is one of the busiest intersections in the city.
I I remember that.
Anyway, I guess that is technically Buckhead, and
The worst.
I was on I was on the corner with one of those on.
Melissa, we need to dig up the photos and put that in
No.
the newsletter. Come on,
Why?
it's
I could
funny.
I'm not well, whatever you tell me that we gotta do pictures of that too.
I don't know if I have any, but
Now look, let me tell I will say this, I wouldn't mind it because I could pull off a morph suit back then. I couldn't
yeah,
pull off a
girl.
morph suit today.
You show yourself in that morph suit.
Couldn't pull it off today.
Okay, so I think the worst costume I had to wear was an Alice in Wonderland costume because I worked at, it was actually one of my favorite jobs. It was called the Bay Gables Tea Room, and it was my first serving job in a restaurant where I served very old ladies afternoon tea. Okay, that was my typical job on a Saturday and
Well, okay,
Sunday.
let me just stop you for a second. When you say very old ladies, how old were they? Are they
Oh,
very
well,
old
I
today?
grew up oh, yeah. I grew up in St. Petersburg, Florida, which is
Okay.
now a cool hip city. Back when I was growing up there, the average age was like 88.
Gotcha. Okay.
Like that
All right.
was the average. Like
Truly old women, yes.
this was God's waiting room. So sweet. And so that was my job, was to serve them tea and finger sandwiches and scones and clotted cream and
Very
all
fancy.
yes, all the fun little things. And it was such a fun job. But every once in a while, they would have these events, and they had like an Easter Alice in Wonderland themed tea for like mommies and daughters. And my boss just thought it would be so cute if I dressed up like Alice in Wonderland. And I was in my like angsty teenage years. So now I actually don't think that would be a bad costume or a bad thing to do because it'd be sweet for little kids. Now I'm a parent or whatever. But when I was an angsty teenager and wearing Doc Martens, you know what I mean? Like dressing up like Alice in Wonderland and having the headband and, you know, my hair curled and blonde and walking around the thing, I was like, it felt a little humiliating.
It just reminded me, the thicker the sole of your shoe, the bigger the attitude.
Oh, yeah. I was cool back then. Yeah, I was
nice.
like, trying to smoke Camel Lights and wear my Doc Martens, and I didn't want anything about being Alice in Wonderland. I mean, fast forward to my early 30s when I was divorced and single, and Alice in Wonderland for a Halloween party. That was the best night ever. I got lots of attention.
Well, it was a different audience. It wasn't the old ladies.
It wasn't the old ladies or the little kids.
But seeing my future, I would think if I was an old lady and saw you in that it would cross my mind for a second because I'm not dead yet.
That's fantastic. Okay, let's dive into a question for the Friendzy advice column. Okay, Melissa Carter, are you ready? Let me pull it up here.
I'm ready.
Okay, this is coming from Karen.
Oh, and while you do this, let me just say really quickly, if this is a new segment of the show, if you have any questions, need any advice, it literally is like an advice column. It's like a Dear Friendzy. So Melissa at thefriendzy.com, Jenn at thefriendzy.com. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry,
and you
Karen.
can, you know, any way you want to reach out to us through Facebook, DM us on Instagram. We would love to throw it out there. And of course, we can change your name and details to keep you protected. This is from Karen. It's Krin, which is important.
Okay.
She says, I want to legally change my name, but I'm afraid it will hurt my mom's feelings. I've never felt like it fit me, even before the whole don't be a Karen thing. She says, my mom spelled it weird to be unique, but it's just a headache. She says, my middle name is Chelsea, and I have often gone by the nickname KC. So I want to legally change my name to Casey. Should I change it? Should I tell her or not tell her? I think she will feel insulted.
I had
What would you do?
I had a good friend, Karen, growing up. Because I would think Karen if I saw it spelled that way, because that's how she spelled her name. Or it does. She's still alive. Okay. Not to put her in past tense. Sorry, Karen. So anyway.
It is a bit confusing, though, Karen.
Yes. Well, Mr. Carter, before I give the advice, Mr. Carter the other night said to me, how would you feel if I changed my name? He's 7 years old.
Really?
And I just, without missing a beat, said, "Well, what would you wanna change it to?" And then he kinda stopped, and he's like, "No, I wanna keep my name." So he had heard it somewhere, seen it on a video. I don't know. He was bringing something from the outside world into our house and asked me about it. And I said that, and this is my advice for Karen, is the fact that you are the owner of your life. You are the CEO of your life.
Mhm.
And I am a believer that whatever makes you happy and doesn't hurt other people, then is okay by me. And you talk about hurting your mother's feelings. Well, I mean, Katie and I, and I'm sure Jen and Grant, every parent, when they're naming their child, it's usually this long process. It's you know, sometimes a gut wrenching process because you want to make it so perfect, right? You're giving a
Mhm.
human being the name they will be going by the rest of their
It's
life.
a
So they're
big responsibility. I remember
huge
feeling the
responsibility.
weight of that. Yeah.
Yes. And it took us, I mean, we knew the middle name before we knew the first name of our son because it was that important, right? We thought that he would be named, and he does go by his first name, but but I've even thought he has the option to change that. My brother goes by his second name because
Mm.
his first name was the same as my father's and he wanted to differentiate himself. Um, but even my parents differentiated him as a young child. So anyway, my brother goes by his middle name. Um, but anyway, I think you should. If that's what it's a long process. It's like a tattoo. Now you have to really think this through because once it's done, it's done. So, but if you have been struggling with this name, I don't see because a rose by any other name smells just as sweet, as Shakespeare would say. So, as an adult, you get to do whatever you want to, and then you can just explain to your parents why. But I think as an adult, so many times we think, what would our parents think? My parents are gone, and I still think, what would my parents think about certain things?
Mhm.
But your parents raised you to be an adult. And as an adult, you shouldn't have to worry about what your parents think for you to do something. So, if Mr. Carter changed his name, I would not be offended. I would
Really?
not. I would not. Yes, if from his gut and his soul, I mean, I just want him to be happy, and if he was happier with a different name and it had more meaning to him or it was symbolic in some way, I would still love him just the same. It would not change how I feel about him.
Mhm. And it wouldn't offend you. Now,
No.
would it offend his other mother?
I can't answer for her, but I have a feeling that it would, I think she ultimately would want him to be happy too, but since she picked the first name, I picked the second name, and, um, and obviously we call him
Oh, then
Mr.
what if he switched it to the second name? Then it becomes a competition between who picked what name.
No, I think ultimately she would just wanna be
Come
happy.
around.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
Katie, I mean, I tease Katie a lot, and she's kind of, I mean, we're both from redneck roots, so we're both little hothead Southern ladies, but, at the end of the day, though, she's much better at letting things go than I am, so I think she might be hurt for 5 seconds, and then she'd be, "Okay, let's
Move on.
watch the
Yeah.
Georgia football game."
Yeah. Okay, for name changing, I have 2 stories. One is that my husband says he went through a phase when he was younger. His name is Grant, which I love because it's not super common, but it's easy.
Mhm.
He knew a kid in school named David who was the coolest kid, and so he had, like, a year or 2 of his life he wanted to be David, and he really
Oh.
tried to get his family to call him David, and it did not work.
Aw, he wanted to
So
be the cool
cute. Yeah, he
kid.
just wanted to be cool, which I think is so sweet. Anyway, I was
Sweet.
like,
No, Grant's a
"But
very strong
I'm
name
like,
too.
honey, I love your name. You gotta go with it." He's like, "I've come to realize that I like it now, but I didn't when I was a kid. I wanted to be David
Aw,
so badly."
that's so
Which I
cute.
think is adorable.
But
So,
see, again, that's a case where
hopefully
you don't change your name because of that. That's not a good enough reason to go through the whole process with
right.
this Social Security office and with change your name everywhere. Like that's a
Yeah,
lot of paperwork. I don't think you understand any 401k accounts, anything you got with your legal name. You got to
everything.
change
Change it
everything.
all. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Well, and, for Mr. Carter, it may be a phase just like Grant, so that's why I wanted to tell you if
Oh, right.
it
Well,
could
I
just
don't
be
know
a
where he
little
got it from
phase.
because when I told him, I said, "What do you want to change it to?" He didn't tell me. He didn't tell me what he wanted it to be. He just said, "No, I like my name." So I don't know why he backed down for
Mhm.
after
Just
my
thought
response.
about it for a second, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I have another friend who changed his name after his mother died. He said he'd never felt like his name fit him. His mom passed, and she passed kind of suddenly. She had a short battle with cancer. So by the time they had discovered it, it was pretty far along. And as soon as she passed, he changed his name. And everyone was like, okay, is this a reaction? Is this like a mourning thing? Is this like a midlife crisis thing? You lost your mom. Is this some sort of emotional reaction? But he has stuck with it for the rest of his life. So I guess he really didn't feel like that original name fit him, but it felt more free after mom passed to go change it. So,
Right.
so that's all I can really offer for Karen. But I would just hate if you changed it because of the whole "don't be a Karen" thing.
Oh,
Like
that's my
that.
first thought. Yeah.
Like
That'll go away.
it
That
is
we'll
a
take on somebody
passing
else.
trend. It's not something that's going to stick forever. It's just a right now thing.
Well,
So if it's like,
I do think though that Karen will like Melissa. So Melissa was very, very popular in 1970 in the early 70s, and
yep.
then nobody names their child Melissa.
Same with Jennifer.
So I
Jennifer,
will.
super popular, late 70s, early 80s. Nobody names their kid Jennifer anymore.
So in 20, 30 years, when you hear Melissa, you know it's an old lady.
Yep.
And so with Karen, I do think that's what's also going to happen is that people are not naming their children Karen now because of this whole thing. And then Karen will end up being an old lady name, an old
But
white lady name, I guess.
then it'll come back around and be cool again in a couple more generations because, there are a lot of kids now that have what we thought of as old lady names, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Like I know a lot of like pearls and olives and rubies and,
Right. Yes.
there are a lot of like older lady names that are back now and they're now in kindergarten.
Yeah. So maybe Melissa
So
will come back. I don't know.
Melissa could come back. Jennifer could come back. And guess what? Karen could come back in the best way. So I think, if you've never felt like it was really you and you want to change it, I think you go for it. Like Melissa said, you're a grown ass woman and you do what you want to do.
Yeah.
But if you got to really think long and hard. Are you changing it because of the whole don't be a Karen, which basically means don't be
I
a
know.
curmudgeon, right?
Well, and not
Is
to
that the
extend
right
it,
word?
curmudgeon. Yeah.
Curmudgeon?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of it in a
A
nutshell, right?
racist curmudgeon. It's not
Right.
just curmudgeon. It's a racist curmudgeon, is a
Ugh.
Karen. But also, one last thing too is a parent, the reason there's a lot of responsibility on you is because you're trying to name a person that isn't here yet. Like we
Right.
named our children before we knew their personality. Like animals, I wait to name them until I know their personality. But a
Right.
baby, you don't have the same luxury. So that's the other thing is if you don't like your name, your parents tried their best, but they didn't know you well enough.
Right.
Um, to do, maybe we should wait to name kids until they're a year old. They just
Oh,
have some kind of stamp
no.
on them, and then when they're a year old, we know exactly who they
No.
are. No?
No.
All right.
I don't like that
That
idea.
would ruin the whole monogram, baby shower, the whole Southern
There's some
overdo the
bonding. I think there's
initials.
some bonding that happens with being able to call a person by their name, especially in the early years. But I see what you're saying is that it's not
Yeah.
a reflection of their personality yet.
Correct. So
I know
that's
a
why I
lot of
think it's
people
okay to
that
change your name.
didn't name their babies until they actually saw them, you know. It's still not a reflection of their personality because they're just the little cutest little tiny little nuggets. All right, here we go. Melissa has got this week's mirror mantra.
Yes. All right. Here's what you say to your reflection in the mirror. And remember, youth is the gift of nature. Age is a work of art.
Oh, so good. One more
Youth,
time.
youth is the gift of nature, but age is a work of art. You create who you want to be as an older woman. Nobody does it for you. You finally have the freedom to do it. So do it the way you want to do it, whether it's with Karen or Anne or what's the Asian actress that was in
I'm not the movie buff. I'm never good at this.
dang it. Hold on. Yes, I'm going to take the time to look this up because I love her name and it's not the name that her parents gave her.
Oh, really?
Hold on. Oh, well, I assume it's not. It's her stage name. That's the beauty of being an artist is sometimes you can create a stage name. You get
Yes.
to do that. All right, hold on. Sorry. Ah. taking up too much time. Ba-da-da-da. Oh, Awkwafina.
Oh.
Awkwafina. She spells her name Awkwafina. Awkwafina. If you don't know who she is, look her up. She is fantastic and she is hilarious.
And she's just being her. She's like,
And
this is my name now. Thank
it's
you.
Awkwafina, and they changed the name of the brand, and that is her name she goes by as an actress. And so, yes, whatever makes you happy. I love her regardless of what her name is.
I love that. Age is a work of art. You got it, sister. All right. If you enjoyed this episode of The Friendzy, please share it with a friend. We would love for more people just like you to find out about our show.
I'm lost. Hold on. All right, here we go. Are you enjoying the Friendzy podcast? Well, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening and leave us a review.
Check out our Friendzy YouTube channel with videos, extended interviews, and bloopers.
And be sure and follow at The Friendzy on Instagram and direct message us, DM us with your advice for the advice column questions. Any feedback you have, we would love to hear from you.
And here is a reminder to share your story. That's why Melissa and I do The Friendzy, because connecting with friends is essential. It's so important to our own health and well-being to connect with friends, have those friendships, and share your stories. They matter more than ever.
The Friendzy is hosted and produced by Melissa Carter and Jenn Hobby. Sound editing by Bo Johnson.
Original soundtrack produced by Tammy Hurt for Placement Music, written and recorded by Mark Daniels. The Friendzy is a part of the Digitent Podcast Network.
The Friendzy celebrates friendships over 40, so thank you for spending time with us. We love your friendship.
Until next week, trust your gut,
share your story,
and
stop lying about your age. We will see you next week. Mwah! No, we won't. We'll see you in a couple days. I'm getting used to it.